All right, we're back on this project, and if you haven't seen these videos, I'll link them in the description below. This would be part 3 on this effort to make nice, clean, bubble-free castings in this clear resin. This is a light fixture part, and it needs to be bubble-free. The first one we made, as you will recall if you watched them, was loaded with bubbles. Second one we made was considerably better, but still not as bubble-free as I'd like it to be. We'll give it another shot and see if we can get it to be even better. What I did was I went out and I invested in a new piece of equipment, and I'm a giver that way. I'll do anything for you guys, and I think that it's really going to be the secret to getting a bubble-free casting. And here it is. It's an aluminum pan. I think it was like 59 cents. Stick around and I will show you how we can use this secret weapon to make bubble-free castings. There they are, kids. The enemy of the people, bubbles. Let's see if I can vibrate some of those bubbles out of there. Helped a little, but still, you can see there's still a lot of bubbles. And this is the problem. See how the bubbles cling to the sides of stuff? That is a problem. That is exactly what we're fighting against, is the bubbles that are just clinging to the side of the glass. And it's hard to dislodge them. Even if I vibrate, helps, but they're very difficult to dislodge. If you have a container that's full of liquid, that's full of bubbles, even in a vacuum chamber, the thicker it is, the more viscous it is, the longer it takes to pull the bubbles, to get them to rise out of the material. So a tall, thin, vertical container is not ideal for debubbleizing. The genius of a flat pan like this is that you can pour the rubber or the resin into a flat layer, a shallow layer, and that way the bubbles don't have very far to rise up, and you can debubbleize a massive material of resin a lot faster. And that makes a difference because I have 12 minutes of open time to get this resin out of this pan and into the mold. I'm going to pour it slowly and gently. I don't have a lot of time. By the time I get the resin mixed, debubbleized, and poured into that mold, I'm going to need every bit of those 12 minutes. Obviously, we're going to use our bubbling device in the vacuum chamber, but the problem is, it doesn't fit. Fortunately for me, I'm a sculptor, I made it fit. I kept the bottom the same size. That way you've got that broad, flat area to rise bubbles out of, and I formed a little pour spout on that one end, on this corner, because that is how we're going to drain this thing into the mold. Let's mix some resin. You cannot tell the A side from the B side, which is why I label the cups. If you saw the first 2 videos, you'll know that this mold leaked on the bottom. So what we're going to do is we're going to seal up the bottom, and we shouldn't have any leaks. Let's see what a 20 batch looks like. Okay, so that's the A side. Yeah, that's going to be plenty. And let's do the B side. 20. Perfect. We know that moisture causes foaming in resin, so the last thing you want to do is have any place in the system where you can introduce moisture from the atmosphere. One source of potential moisture is stir sticks, wooden stir sticks. Definitely a problem. It's one of the reasons I use pressure pots, because moisture does get into the resin. Pressure pots suppress the foaming and won't allow the resin to foam. But we can't use pressure on this mold. So here's a trick. I save used stir sticks because they're already coated in urethane resin. So this is a plastic stir stick. Even though the base is wood, it's acting as a plastic stir stick. Another thing you can use is dirt cheap coffee stirrers, and by themselves they're not all that effective, but if you pick up 3 or 4, they make a mighty effective stir stick, and they're plastic, so again, you don't have the problem with the moisture. But I'll use my handy dandy sticks and we'll stir this up. Whenever you mix resin like this, you're always just invariably going to entrain air into the mix, but this is such a small amount that I'm not really seeing any bubbles. The bubbles that I'm making are just rising right out. Taking the time to really mix it well. See, now I'm going to save those sticks and we'll use them some other time. And let's go ahead and let's coat this with resin down here on the flange. Now you're saying to me, but aren't you deliberately creating a lot of flashing on the bottom of this mold? And the answer to that would be yes. I am in fact doing that. But I don't care because it breaks off. I've learned that it breaks off pretty easily. And I really, really, really want this bottom edge of this mold to be sealed, because if it is, it won't leak so much. And not leaking is a good thing, let me tell you. Well, we got it. I have the resin. Might as well use it, huh? Let's slap some resin on this side as well. Now, I'm not seeing any bubbles in this resin that I'm brushing on. It is bubble free. So we're not going to be introducing any bubbles into this mix. All right. That should make a pretty decent gasket. Let's see if we can get this together and get it sealed up. Get it sealed up right. Nice. Okay, let's get this thing put together. Make sure that it's falling together nicely. It is. Okay. Once again, I'm putting the bands on in order, which helps make it much easier to take them apart. It's looking pretty good. Get this thing banded up all around. I think it's sealed up pretty well. All right, we're gonna let that cure up. If you've watched my videos, you've heard me say that the position that you hold a mold in when you pour it is absolutely critical to the success of the mold. So what I have done is to orient the mold like this. And the idea is, by the way, I bought this funnel, I think in a 3-pack for $1 at the dollar store, so I'm prepared to sacrifice this funnel. But what I want to have happen is I want to gently and slowly pour the resin down and into the bottom, the spline, the deepest part. This is the deepest part of the mold. And I just want the resin to run down slowly and evenly and just fill the mold from the bottom. Like that, just rise up. And hopefully it won't leave bubbles all over the surface. I have no idea if this is going to work, but it's my best guess as to how we can get this to work. And the good news was all these pieces, these wooden pieces and everything, I didn't build those. Those are just parts I already had. So this setup was actually very quick, very easy to do. And let's mix some resin and let's debubbleize it and let's pour some resin. Equal amounts of the A and the B. Let's dump them. The A is a little thinner, so it drips out faster. Wait for the B to catch up. There we go. Let's stir, stir, stir. Very hard to see, but don't worry. I'm entraining a lot of air in this resin right now. It's unavoidable. Lots and lots and lots of bubbles. Okay, that's probably pretty well mixed. I don't know, can you see the bubbles in there? Probably not. Hard to tell on the camera. Let's dump. Now this is the genius of the pot. Oh yeah, you can see the bubbles in there. This is the genius of this system. I'm not going to scrape out every little bit because I don't have time. I want to get this thing fired up. So you can see the pump's doing its job. Now let's see. The bubbles don't have very far to rise. So that helps us to clear them out. It's just amazing how many there are. So let's see what's going to happen here. I'm going to do a slow, gentle pour. Take my time and hope and pray we don't leak. It's smelling nice. Well, they're really slow. It's really warm in the shop, but the resin's still flowing nicely, flowing like water. It's not catching, it has no chance to catch bubbles or to create more bubbles in a really gentle flow like this. All right. So far so good. This piece has filled really well. And so far it's doing exactly what I hoped it would do. If I pour too fast, it wants to back up out of the nozzle. So I have to go really slow, which is good actually, because then I can fill the mold itself slowly. I'm expecting some spillover, so I should have a little bit too much resin here, but just a little bit. And if I don't, I'll top it. Watch, I'll come up like 10 grams short. This resin is water clear. The resin's quite warm, but it's still flowing beautifully. All right, got it topped off. We'll let it sit overnight, and tomorrow we can see what we got. No time like the present, where we're either gonna succeed or we're gonna crash and burn again. We know that we got the resin bubble free. That worked out great. I saw it as I poured it. There was no bubblage. Let's see if my strategies paid off. Crossed up my rubber bands a little bit, not too bad. Okay, what do you guys think? Think we won this time? Think third time's a charm? I hope so. We shall see. Okay, that came off nice. This looks like it got a lot of leakage. Oh yeah, we did catch a little bit of leakage underneath, so I'll have to clean that up. But that's no big deal. A little bit of flash leakage, and that would be from when we put the seal on there. Seal worked great. Seal worked perfect. We got no leakage at all. But that's not what matters, because I don't care about the flash on the bottom. I can live with the flash on the bottom. What I hope is that we got a nice clean casting without too many bubbles. Let's see what we got. Yep, we still have some bubbles. I don't think it's worth pouring this particular resin into this mold again. It just isn't worth the trouble. I'm not getting the results I want, and there's no sense in repeating over and over again the same mistakes. I'm wondering if the bubbles, any of these bubbles, were generated by this chemical reaction with this tin rubber. It's been a while since I've been back on this project. You know how I'm always going on about the importance of the material data sheets and how you should read them and you should understand them, know your materials, all that stuff. It's great advice. Really be useful if I'd follow my own advice because not doing so has come back to bite me in the butt on this project. I called my friends at Silpac, and turns out that the urethane, the clear urethane resin I've been using all along doesn't like tin rubber. It wants to cure against platinum rubber. And it's very likely that that has been the cause of the bubbles all along. It's just a chemical reaction of incompatible materials. See, if you don't mind looking stupid in public, you should start a YouTube channel. It's a really great way to make mistakes in front of thousands of people. But anyway, what I did then was, since I'm stuck with these molds, they're good molds, there's nothing wrong with them, I just need a different material, so we're gonna switch to epoxy resin. And it has several advantages and disadvantages. One advantage is that it cures very slowly, and that'll give a lot more time to clear the bubbles out. We're gonna vac it before we pour it. We're gonna pour it the same way you saw me do it earlier, slowly and gently, and lay it in there. And we're gonna hope that at long last, we pull a pretty casting out of this mold. Let's go mix some resin and find out. All right, good. Little ease release. Epoxy resins are harder on molds, or can be harder on molds than urethane resins. So it's good to use a release agent. Got the one, let's move it over. All right, looks to me like it's well coated all the way around. It's been 24 hours and this thing is cured up nice and hard. So hopefully all the edges are sealed. And we're gonna know in a minute when I pour the resin. Put this resin in the vacuum tank. Let's close the valve, fire it up. Coming up on 27 pounds of pressure. You can see how much air I'm pulling out. It's a lot. So this is why we want to vac this resin ahead of time to pull all the mixing bubbles out, and we'll get this thing fully vac and we're ready to go. It has an air vent, so it does not need to vent out of the same sprue as I'm pouring into. It should just be falling straight down to the bottom, right down the middle, and rising up toward the sides. Okay, that's half the batch. Let's mix and pour the other half. I'm just going to pour in a slow, steady stream and let the resin run all the way to the bottom of the mold and then just fill up slowly. With any luck, that will push bubbles that might catch out in front of the rising resin. Okay, well, while I was filling it, and leaks developed in the bottom of the mold, as you can see. I made a hell of a mess out of my bench and drained about half the resin out of the mold. So to fix the leaky problem, what I have done is I have just wrapped the bottom with rubber bands, just a tremendous number of rubber bands, and hopefully that is going to do it. So let's pour in the batch all over again. I have revacked the resin. This is the resin that I salvaged from the mold. We're going to pour it again and see if it leaks. All right, boys and girls, it is time yet again for another reveal. This job just destroyed a bunch of rubber bands because there's a lot of resin on these bands. Yeah, boy, I stuck all these rubber bands on here with all this leaky res. Good old epoxy resin. Nice. Nice. We're just going to have to cut the bands off. Well, I needed a project to come along that would destroy my reputation as somebody who actually knew what he was doing. And this was one. And I could have just put this project quietly in the can and never mentioned it. But I think there's some value to this because this is the kind of stuff that happens to you. And you know, you can do two things when this happens. You can cry, you can give up, you can hang yourself in the closet with a stout rope, which is what you feel like doing because it's, you know, there's a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of effort that goes into these molds. And when they fail, it's not fun. And when things go wrong, it's not fun, especially if you don't know why they went wrong. So this is one of those examples of a time when not very much has gone right. And it happens. It just happens. I will clean off all this junk later. Let's see if the mold comes apart first of all. That's the next big thing. There we go. Well, let's take the mold apart. We can worry about the cleanup later. Let's get this one off of here because really all we care about is what this casting looks like. And we'll see if it looks like anything. I don't know. I'm not liking what I just felt, I'll tell you. I don't like what I just felt. I don't like this. I don't like that. What is going on? What is going on? Okay. Wow, hold it. Let's take a look. Well, that is the closest thing to a bubble-free casting we've made so far. But it has issues. It has casting flaws, but by God, it's the closest thing. Now, one thing that concerns me greatly is the top part is rigid, but why is this part still, it's not uncured, but it's not rigid. It's definitely got some slight flaws. This is the cleanest casting we've made. It's got nice clarity. It's got nice color. All right. Well, I can tell you for sure, this is the last time you're going to see this project. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something out of this project. I hope through all the miseries and all the failures and all the effort that went into this project, along the way you got some good ideas and some good thoughts. And also, maybe the best takeaway of all is that sometimes despite your very best efforts and despite working hard and trying hard and spending a lot of money, you may not get the result you want. Anyway, hey, I hope you got something out of this video. I hope you liked it. Hit that like button, and I will see you next week.